Well, here we are on another live on Facebook, which will also be posted to YouTube. It's 3:20 on Monday. I had to go ahead and do this live because I just got off the phone with a client, and this is something that comes up periodically that I want to talk about, and that is low self-awareness. I don't know why that struck me as funny, but it did. So I have a client that knows how they are, but seems to forget. So let's take a look at their style, and I'm going to take you to the report and put it up here on the screen. And so this person's known as a designer, and it's a fairly rare style. I've got the actual numbers here of how rare it is. What did I do with them? Hold on a second. Okay, this profile. This profile is, you ready for this? 1% of the population. Okay, 1% of the population. So what does that mean? Well, here's what it means the most. When people run into these folks, they don't know what to do because they've never seen one before. Oh, my jaws are killing me. My cheeks hurt. I've been so hard. So I get a my client makes a oh my God, my cheeks are killing me. My client makes a scheduled appointment, calls in. I pick up the phone, not quite sure what's going on, and she says to me, "Okay." See, so let me give you a little bit of backstory. So I helped this person hire a support person for their office. And so we went through all the profiles. We went through all the behavior and brain type. Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you tuning in. We went through all these things prior to the hire, and she still wanted the person. And she should, because it's a very great person. It's a great profile. What isn't so great is what's starting to happen, which I will add, I predicted. I predicted this was going to happen, and I told her that. So when she got on the phone, I said, "Okay, first what we're going to do is I'm going to go back and tell you what I told you before you hired this person." Oh my God, this is great. So she's like, "Okay." So, oh God. Anyway, so hey, John. I think welcome welcome to the behavioral comedy show. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Let's. Oh, let me catch my breath. All right. So it's time to get serious here. This is going to be a quick little video that I can't seem to get through. Okay. So the girl that was hired is known as a true believer. That's the profile. The true believer is a very, sweet style, very sweet person. This huge conflict avoider. Good or bad? Well, again, neither, okay? It isn't about good or bad. You just need to know this. No matter what the graph says, you need to understand it's not good or bad. It's how often do we see it? How does it work within the environment? And how do I like that kind of style based upon how my brain functions, right? These are all the elements that come into play when working with something as complex as a person. So understanding human complexity is paramount for success when it comes to work and family and marriage and everything. Okay. Do I have to keep repeating myself? So this is so funny because I said, okay, what's going on? She goes, well, she's late. And she's been late like 4 times. And I said, okay, describe, I said, describe late. She said, well, she's supposed to be here at 8:30. I said, well, when did she show up? She said, 8:32. Oh my God. This kills me. I said, what? 8:32. I said, okay, what about the other times? Well, one was at 8:25. There was another 8:32 and another 8:30. I said, okay, tell me more. She said, well, I explained to her during the hiring process that I like people to be in the office at 8:30, productive and working. Oh, whew. Okay. So I said, okay, so you called me because you want my advice. And she said, yes. I said, okay, you ready? And she starts laughing because she doesn't know what I'm going to say. And I said, this is stupid. She goes, excuse me? I said, she goes, who's stupid? I said, no, not who. I said, this is stupid. I said, okay, hold on a second. You're really not choosing your battles well. I said, stop. Now listen, tell me some other things that are a problem with this person. And she said, nothing. Everything's wonderful except for this. Oh, my God. Oh, I just said, okay, I need you to listen to me. And I said, you're not winning friends and influencing people here. I understand that it's important to you that somebody's there at 8:30 working and productive, and I understand you have your reasons. And then she went ahead and gave me several reasons, and then she clarified those reasons with saying something to this effect. She said, I think I'm gun shy, or paranoid, or she thought she has been set back on her heels a little bit because of a situation that happened. Hey, Mike, good to see you, buddy. A situation that had happened, way back at another time that, was critical. So let's look at my graph here for a minute, if we could. And so I want you to notice here that, the dominant trait is in play, and it's above high, okay? High is anything above 50, and we're looking at, a graph that's, kind of up here. And so this creates, you see, this is resolute. This is somebody they think in terms of finality, like that's final. So here's what she said to me. She said, listen, I told her I want you here at 8:30 working. She said, which means you arrive earlier than 8:30 so you can go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee, get at your desk, turn the computer on, blah, 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 and then be working at 8:30. So I don't understand why I have to say it again. So I said, listen, you talk that way to this person based upon the other person's profile. They're going to be offended. And she says, oh, my God, she is offended. She goes, I already talked to her. The first time I talked to her, she took huge offense. I said, of course. I said, because you're like hugging a cactus. And so, this is why she responded the way she did. And so you need to understand, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the way you think or the way you do things, but you have to understand that if you open a can of tuna fish with a hammer, it makes a bigger mess than if you used a can opener. And this is what you're doing. And so that might need to be adjusted when dealing with this particular people type. And she said, okay. And I said, now, the other thing is, you're not an optimistic person. So I want you to look at my graph here and look at the yellow line. So this is a very logical-oriented person. So she has a very low intensity with optimism, which makes her extremely logical. I tell you to show up at this time, therefore you show up at this time, end of story. That's logic. I'm just right now, as I'm talking, I'm getting an image in my mind of a Star Trek movie I saw in the theater. I believe it was the second Star Trek movie. Maybe this goes back to the 80s or 90s that they made. And what had happened was Spock, Dr. Spock, First Officer Spock, we thought he was dead in the previous film, and then they come back to this film, and he's not. And so Captain Kirk meets Spock, and after previously thinking he was dead, and he yells out, Spock, you're alive! Like this. And Dr. Spock just looks at him and says, logical, Captain. It was just great. It's a great scene. And so this is how this person thinks. Now, the other interesting situation we got here is we got a hesitant line in the patient's emotion. So the client is a very high patient as well. So when you have patience and anger in play at the same time, it creates a very peculiar effect. You become unreadable. And so what I mean by that is, when these two emotions work together, they cancel each other out because they're opposites. And so what happens is, it's sort of like hurry up and slow down. Well, anybody saying that to me, my brain's going to think, okay, I get that, but which is it? Do I hurry up or do I slow down? Because I can't do both. But this brain does both. And when it does, it creates an effect known as what I call the dog I'm not sure I can pet. And so if you've ever seen one of those dogs that you walk up to it and then you stop and your brain checks in with you and says, don't go any further because I don't know what this dog's going to do. And so you stop. Not all dogs are like that. Some golden retrievers might be all smiley and happy and come at you with the tongue out and squinty eyes. Or maybe like my little beagle, who just is adorable. And you just don't hesitate with an animal like that. But then there are other dogs where you're like, I'm not sure what that dog's doing. It looks like it's doing math right now. And I'm not sure which end of that equation I'm in. So we don't want to go near that dog until we get more information, right? So that's happening here. The other thing that's happening is there's a high intensity in the fear emotion. We're talking a 90. So that's really high. And so what that creates is a very strong calculating mindset. So when the higher looks at their boss, they see this person who's looking at her or them or her, and she can't read her, and she knows she's doing the math, but she doesn't know the equation. So she's left having to guess. Now, because she herself is a conflict avoider, she doesn't even want to be in this situation, and so she'll tolerate it, and then see where it goes. All right, let's look at this here. So she adapts. The leader of this company here adapts to a Lone Ranger profile. So if you're wondering why we call this person the Lone Ranger, it's because they like to go it alone, and other people feel like they're in their way. And so there's a taking orientation, there's a preserving orientation, there's a responsive orientation. And then at the same time, while all this is going on, this person's emotionally distant. And there it is right there in the graphs. You can see it. That's a problem when the person you're dealing with is highly emotional. And that's what we have. The higher is an emotional style. So I had this conversation, and in about 10 minutes, we wrapped the conversation up, and she said, I'm very glad I called you because now I'm not going to say anything. I said, that's a good choice. Why don't you find everything else about this girl, find something in those areas that you could tell her she's doing great at. So look for places in her performance where you can give her an attagirl. Because what will happen is, as long as she understands that you have issue with her, quote, what you're calling tardiness, if you give her enough emotional support in who she is, and then the kudos for what she does, then there'll be a knee-jerk reaction in her brain that will want to, this is known as the reciprocity rule, that'll want to pay you back in some way. And if I know one of the most important things to you is me being at work working at 8:30, don't think I won't do my darndest to make that happen. But if I don't sense that you're happy with me or don't like me, and I don't feel like I can live up to these basically inappropriate standards, we'll say, then I'm not going to do it. Now, nobody will. Most people won't, and it's not how the brain works. And so there becomes a me against you mindset that starts kicking in and will eventually prevail. And what will happen is, I told her, I said, what will happen is this girl will not work for you any longer. And all you have with this girl is one problem, and it's the fact that it took her 4 more minutes than you wanted her to get her computer running. And that's the problem you're going to lose her over. Is that something you want to do? She goes, no, absolutely not, because I lost the last person because of this. Oh, really? So this is a pattern. You see? It's a pattern. And so who needs the consulting? The employee or the employer, right? So I drafted an email after the conversation to the employer, and I just said, these are some traits that are associated with your brain type. Now, one of these traits is restricting contact to just a few people, and then seeking to understand their motivations and their interests, and determining at what level they can actually be trusted. Why? Because emotionally distant people are distrusting. That's why they're emotionally distant. They never want to put their emotions out there so that they could be exposed, hurt, betrayed, or any of these things. The other side to that is logical dominant types have a fear of being taken advantage of. Wow! Think about that. So this is why they're always determining at what level people can be trusted. And then they shut other people off with little or no explanation for their rejection of them. And the reason being is because the lower your optimism and the higher your patience, the less communicating you do. Your brain just goes, they'll get the message. Well, they will get the message, but it's not a great message. It would be better to explain how important this is to you, and that everything she's doing is so wonderful that this would be the icing on the cake if you could. And here are the reasons why I need you here at 8:30. It's not because I'm a strict disciplinarian. It's because there was several occasions when we weren't here, and because we're on Pacific time, it creates a problem with Eastern time and our clients and blah, 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 blah. So there was a reason, but she wasn't explaining it. And so important. What else do these types do? Number 2, they prefer to let people survive on their own because that's what they do. Remember, we don't see people as they are, we see them as we are. So because she's a survivor, she lets other people survive and thinks nothing of it, right? And then she, meaning the employer, operates in her own realm of interests. And so others get stereotyped. They fail to provide others with an opportunity to clarify their belief systems. They don't want to know a whole lot about your life. They want to know about your family. They don't engage in those kinds of conversations. They get to work, and that's what they do. They work, right? Great. Well, if you hire somebody who has the fear of not being liked, has the fear of failure, and has the fear of being mischaracterized, and then you treat him like this, what do you think is going to happen? Right? So think about this. This is just math equations. This is just science. So if I hire a person who feels and I show no feelings at all to that person, how's that person going to interpret the way I do things? Or how do you think they're going to believe I feel about them, showing no feeling at all? Imagine a feeling person, a person who feels deeply, cutting off their emotions towards another person. What would be the reason for that? They didn't like him. There was a really big problem, and we could create a list, maybe 5 or 6 items long there. And so that's what the employee's brain begins to think when she looks and sees these human behaviors coming from another person. She can only interpret them in light of her own brain. So one of the things we're going to do is I'm going to have a phone call with the employee and explain the other person's behavioral profile and how their brain works so we can salvage this whole thing. What else happens? Lone Rangers, what do? They have a rigid attitude when dealing with people that don't live up to their high standards. Why? Because there's no emotion in it, so it comes off as sharp. Okay? Emotions are sweet. That's why we call them soft skills. If you're a task-oriented style, you have sharp skills. Okay? What does that mean? It means if I get too close to you, I could get cut. Right? That's what sharp skills mean. So there's a lot going on here. Questioning the reputation or the expertise of people that have differing viewpoints. So if you have a different viewpoint than me, and I'm a Lone Ranger brain type, then I'm going to question 2 things: your reputation and your level of expertise. Period. It's just where my brain goes. Okay? Until I figure out that that's untrue, I'm going to stick with it because I don't try to verify if what I'm thinking is true. The brain only tries to justify whether its thinking is true. So you need to remember that. Fearing those without an ambitious attitude will take advantage of you. What does that mean? They see people with low energy as moochers. And so I had a person one time, this goes back like 14 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I was visiting them at their office. We're sitting in their office, and he pulls me into him. Okay, pulls me to him. And he says, he pulls me into him and he says, "Come here, I want to show you something. Look. And he points out his door, and I look out the door, and one of his employees is sitting at their desk, and you kind of get a line sight of her sitting there, and she's got a little compact mirror up, and she's putting her lipstick on. And he goes, look, 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 look. I go, what? Look at her stealing from me. I said, what? When she's not working, she's stealing. That's what he said to me. I'm just showing you how people think. Right? How people think. So there's a profile that this person had, okay, that demonstrates why their brain works that way. So it's very important to understand that. And so the other thing this person does is place a very high, demand, or that's the wrong word. They place a very high value on time. Okay. Now here's something else I want to show you. This is a report that we do called the HVP report. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but one of the things we measure on this report is someone's practical attention score. Okay, so this is the employee's practical attention score. So what is practical attention? It's all about practical, functional, and material values, and your brain bias towards those functional, practical, material values. All right. So this individual has a clear view of what needs to be done, but they have a negative bias in their brain when it comes to doing it. So that's that big black line there. You see on the left it says negative, in the middle it says balanced, on the other side it says positive. So this person's about 75 to 80% negative in their thinking. What does that mean? It means this individual is subject to vulnerabilities when it comes to managing her time and creating priorities. And guess what? Being there, working with the computer on, with my coffee after having gone to the bathroom at 8:30 is not a prioritized value. Okay? And so now I told the employer this when we went through this before the person was hired, that they have vulnerabilities when it comes to managing time and priorities, period. And so they were like, okay. And in the end, they decided to hire them anyway. Now, that doesn't mean this person can't work or do really well in a job. It just means that if you have excessive needs for prompt deadlines and these types of things, and this person will not understand in their brain what on earth you're talking about. So they will need to be taught. So there's a way to teach people. There's two ways. You can make an accusation or you can make an observation. Okay? So the people with the softer skills need observations. The people with the harder skills can handle accusation. It's not the end of the world for them. Problem is, this employer has chosen accusation, not observation. It was the wrong choice. So anyway, I just wanted to let you in on some of those things while it was fresh in my mind, because I just got off the phone and it was such a great conversation, because I'm just letting you into our consulting methods and how we work with people in an effort to determine, why we're getting the same results over and over again in certain areas, and maybe it's because we're not changing the way we do things, even though we understand that doing them this way is not beneficial. So that's it. That's all I'm going to say. So that's we're right here at about 30 minutes, so we'll leave it at that. So what is the moral of this story? Understanding yourself is one thing, But acting on what you understand about yourself and making certain changes when dealing with certain people so we can get better results is another thing. And so it's important that you understand how you're wired, how that works, and how that kind of wiring is going to be received by the differing types of people on the other or on the receiving end. It's super important. All right. Thanks. And until next time, hey, Matt, good to see you, bud. And my son Matt just clicked on. He's in Colorado. So that's it. Y'all can revisit this if you want. It's going to go up on the YouTube channel. And I'm trying to, one of the reasons why I'm doing some of these, I just want to get that thing filled up with a lot of good advice for people so they can, have a better job at navigating the world of the complex person. Anyway, have a good day.